I don't think we talked about something important. Am I hosting or are you, Nick?
I'm assuming I can't hear drops and stuff, so I assumed it was going to be you.
Okay, well, welcome back to Beerfield's Fantasy Football. I am your host at Hot BFF with two P's, coming to you live from St. Louis, Missouri. Joining us on the phone, we're all three in different locations. So from Springfield, Illinois, we've got 3 BFF. Dan, how are you?
What's up, guys? Early morning. I am the only one in the actual studio.
And from someplace in Minnesota, I'm not sure where, we have Nick Sparts. Nick?
Yep, at Nick Sparts, just south of Minneapolis in a suburb called Eagan.
All right, so we are here today to get you all set up for Week 16. It's championship week, so we want to make sure that we leave you guys right headed into those matchups. We're going to preview all of the Sunday games. If you need Saturday's games, go back to Wednesday's episodes where we previewed those. Please ask your questions throughout the show. One of the other two will be watching YouTube in order to catch those. We're now doing all of our recordings on our Sunday morning stream live on YouTube. You can catch up 5:45 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, although not really relevant after this week, and Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. During the weekday shows, we'll do our best to answer your questions between segments and bring all of your questions for us on Sunday morning. We'll answer everything. Now, as the weekday show goes, this is our last Wednesday or Friday show until draft season, really. So it'll be mostly Mondays and not live going forward. I believe that's correct. Nick, am I right about that?
That is correct, unless we have a special event or something like free agency we want to do a live episode for.
Right. So most of the time they will not be live in the off season, but you can still catch us on YouTube and any place you get your podcast on Mondays going forward. And then we'll pick back up to 2 weeks draft season, 3 weeks coming into the NFL season. If you want to help us out, though, this is all still relevant. You can rep how Beerfield you are. We have shirts and hats available for merchandise. You can send beer to be featured on the show. And lastly, we have a Patreon if you want to help support the show with straight cash, homie. DM at BeerfieldFF or email beerfieldfantasy@gmail.com for more info on either of those. Other places you can find us on social media, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Untapped, Beerfield Fantasy Football, or Beerfield FF. I'm not going to try to remember which one's which. And
it's FF.
Okay, cool. And I think that covers all of the intro stuff. So let's go ahead and preview a beer.
Beer Fuel.
It is a split beer episode. I believe Nick and Dan have the same beer, while I have a different one. So, Dan, what are you providing on this show?
I brought Snow Pilot from Point. They're out of Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Snow Pilot is a pistachio nut brown ale, clocking it at 6%. And I'll get more of a review later on in the show.
Nick is beerless. He did not get a beer handed off to him before he left, and the liquor stores have not opened yet in Minnesota.
All right, so Nick does not have a beer. And I am drinking from Evil Twin Brewing, who has been on the show multiple times. This is E is for elderberry. It's a Ghost-style ale brewed with salt and elderberry added. It clocks in at a light 4.5%. Drank a little bit last night, so I am not going too incredibly heavy this morning. We'll let you know what we think of these beers as we get about halfway through the episode. Let's go ahead and jump into some news.
News.
All right, starting off with the Bills. They've signed quarterback Matt Barkley to a 2-year contract extension through 2020. So, Josh Allen insurance?
Yeah, he's your backup of the future, it looks like, which I would take him over Derek Anderson to be sure.
I think that
Yes.
in the few appearances we've seen him as a backup over the last couple of years, I think he's very passable as a backup quarterback.
Yeah, there's definitely worse backup quarterbacks in the NFL.
Looking at you, Mark Sanchez. Looking at you.
Oh, he was supposed to be the backup to the backup.
Yeah, he's been a third stringer for a while.
I'm just saying.
Looking at you, Cody Kessler. Looking at you.
There we go.
There it is.
NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports Frank Gore expects to return for a 15th season in 2019.
What is dead may never die.
He's going after Barry's rushing record. He needs about 560 more yards to get it.
So probably next year.
So that'll get him third.
Yeah, probably next year. Josh Gordon announced that he is stepping away from the football field for a bit to focus on his mental health. It was later announced that he had been suspended indefinitely for a substance abuse violation. So had he been suspended, or was he just expected to be suspended?
The indefinite suspension is coming. They haven't officially announced it yet, but it's been confirmed that this was not a strictly voluntary stepping away from football.
And I was a little confused on the reports I was reading also, because did he have a bad test, or did he just violate the terms of his reinstatement?
I did not get exact details on that. I think it was the latter, where he violated some terms, so maybe he didn't show up for a test, or maybe he did something that he wasn't supposed to that we're not aware of. But it was enough where they just immediately reinstated the suspension on him, so he's probably done for good.
Hopefully you sold him in Dynasty when you had the chance.
Yep, we were preaching that train hard.
Yep. And things that aren't necessarily relevant as much as they are hilarious. Ex-Titans and Eagles wide receiver Dorial Green-Beckham was arrested with a pound of marijuana in Springfield, Missouri early Thursday morning.
Jesus.
I'm surprised you can be arrested for a pound of marijuana in Springfield, Missouri. I thought that was the law, that you had to have a pound of marijuana in Springfield, Missouri.
Just everybody must carry.
Yes.
It's a requirement.
It's a mandatory carry city.
Dorial Green-Beckham, though, has never been relevant for anything, so...
Yeah, can't believe he was a second-round pick by the Titans. That was such a mess up.
Big bust.
Yeah, a lot of potential.
A lot of potential. Big old bust.
Yep.
Greg Olsen reportedly wants to, quote, keep playing next season.
Yep, I think he might give it one more year, and he does have another year guaranteed with the Panthers if he wants it.
I think he is strongly trying to go out on his own terms and not with an injury.
Yeah, he wants to go out on his terms, and the foot's like, nah, bro.
Nah, fam.
Or it's kind of what we've seen with Sproles, too. He was like, okay, one more year, and then gets hurt, and then comes back again. These guys, they're still able to play. They're still able to produce at a certain level. We saw that with Olsen, but
something about their body's not holding up anymore.
Yeah, their bodies are just breaking down. That happens with age. That's all I've got for news, so let's go ahead and talk some in and outs this week. The for sure in so far, Melvin Gordon for the Chargers is going to play.
Yep, it's been reported it may be a slightly limited workload, though, so slightly lower expectations for Gordon.
Mm-hmm. And then LaShawn McCoy also expected to play.
Your expectations are already lowered.
Mm-hmm. And things that, speaking of low expectations, Deshaun Jackson is healthy.
I mean, it'll help the offense at least.
Yeah, it helps Winston, helps open up the offense a little bit, but it torpedoes Godwin as a possible stream.
And potentially Humphreys, and they have the Ravens?
No, they have the
Cowboys.
And
knew it was something bad. And then Dontrell Inman for the Colts.
Yeah, it looked like we thought on Wednesday's episode he might not go, but he got the all clear on Friday.
Okay. Yeah, I don't love that either.
No.
As for your outs, no quarterbacks. Other than, Carson Wentz, but you should know about that already.
Yeah, we told you to drop him already.
At running back, James Conner is going to miss again with the ankle. It was largely thought he would return this week, but he's not.
So, droppable.
You can safely drop him and redraft.
Mm-hmm. Austin Eckler with the neck, so Justin Jackson is going to be the backup to Melvin Gordon if you believe in the limited role. Wide receiver, Odell Beckham not going to play.
Yep, we thought he might come back this week, and then he just never got a practice in. So, I think this quad injury was way worse than they were letting on, because it caused him to be surprise inactive on week 14. I don't think he plays in week 17, and he may be recovering from this into the offseason.
If they were in playoff contention, maybe, at least fighting for a spot, I think because of the season being shut down for them, there's no reason to rush them back. So I don't expect them to play at all the rest of the year.
No, I don't either.
No, I wouldn't either, and I really don't like anybody behind him this week, so don't.
Evan Ingram is like the only one, except they have the toughest tight end defense in the NFL.
Yep, they'll give up more on that later, but they'll give up some yards, not necessarily touchdowns, though. But the wide receiver matchups aren't great. Tyler Boyd not going to play with a knee injury.
I think he's also done for the year.
Yep.
Yeah, likely. I guess if you're looking for somebody, it's John Ross, Alex Erickson, Cody Core, throw a dart at somebody.
Yeah. I mean, Ross is
Yeah.
the most likely to score. They for some reason for being a small speed guy, his red zone usage is absurd.
Yeah. Sammy Watkins not going to play again with a
I
foot
think
injury.
he's done till the actual playoffs.
Yep. Quincy Enunwa going to miss with an ankle, so that's good news for Robbie Anderson.
Yep, great news for Anderson.
Bruce Ellington out with a hamstring. That doesn't really help anybody named Jones.
This kills Matthew Stafford's already non-existent value.
Yep. It's gone negative.
DJ Chark with a quad, who you've probably started exactly 0 times this season.
I have no idea why he did not end up on IR. He's been out for 6 straight weeks.
I don't either.
Jesus.
At tight end, Jordan Reed with the toe, Vernon Davis with a concussion. So it's a Jeremy Sprinkle show in Washington.
In a really, really, really bad match.
Yep. Josh Lambo, we're going to miss with the groin.
Yep.
And the key DST inactive Eddie Jackson going to miss with the ankle for the Bears. So this opens things up for George Kittle a bit.
Yeah,
Yay.
I've had a lot of like Bears Titans questions. I was already leaning Titans, but this kind of solidifies it for me because Mullins can put up some points, which hurts the Bears' floor a little bit.
Yeah, they're missing 2 key members of their secondary with Callahan and Jackson both out. So while McManus and I believe Bush are still okay backups, it's a major drop off. And then check back Sunday, Matthew Stafford with the back. If you're considering that
play
for
him
some
anyways.
reason. Todd Gurley with the knee is the big one, I think. Probably one of the biggest ones.
This one makes me so nervous because I think they'll let him play, but I think he gets shut down early.
Yeah,
I just don't think he plays on a full workload.
Yeah, it also makes it tough to say, okay, I'm starting CJ Anderson.
I mean, and the other issue is they're in an afternoon game in a week where there's not a ton of afternoon games. So unless you have something like Damian Williams or another player that you can easily make the swap for, Gurley's tough this week.
Yeah, if you're the Gurley owner, you should have snagged CJ Anderson already.
Yep. Yeah. I'm amazed that Anderson is the answer, but that's what the coaches are saying.
Well, we'll see how the game goes, but
yeah,
I don't want to play any.
I don't necessarily want to play any of them, but
Yeah,
I mean, it's a matchup says you kind of should.
yeah.
You got Lamar Miller with the ankle.
Yep. He's got limited practices in all week. I think he probably goes because they're desperately fighting to try to keep a bye week. But if he doesn't go, it's a solid matchup. So roll Alfred Blue out if you need an emergency start.
I may do that anyway. In the flex, because even if Miller goes, you probably only expect him in the 10 to 13 carry range.
Yep.
Being banged up.
Yep.
Spencer Ware doubtful to go with a hamstring injury, so it's Damian Williams again.
Damian Williams is a mid running back 2 or higher with that. Seattle's run defense is not great.
Yep.
Oh,
Chris Ivory with a shoulder,
Yeah.
if you care.
Slightly helps McCoy, I guess. He might get a couple of more goal line attempts.
Yep. Rashad Penny with the knee. This is more relevant to Chris Carson's value.
And it sounds like more likely than not he doesn't go. So that really helps Carson.
Yep. And then Justin Davis with the shoulder.
Which makes CJ Anderson the handcuff.
Yep. CJ
John
Anderson,
Kelly.
John Kelly. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins and an ankle injury.
It's expected he'll play. He apparently injured this on the first play of the game last week, played through it, scored 2 touchdowns. I think he'll probably be fine.
He's a monster.
Keenan Allen with the hip. He's expected to go.
Yep.
Check back tonight because he doesn't play tomorrow.
Yeah, he does play Saturday. All reports are that he's going to get the all clear.
Yeah.
Julio Jones, hip and ribs, probably going to play.
This is a little dicier than normal, Julio, because he actually did not get a practice in on Friday. Usually he doesn't practice Wednesday, gets limited Thursday, full practice Friday, but he did not on Friday. So keep a close eye on this one. I would not be shocked if Julio does not go.
If Julio does
He
not
hasn't had
go, Calvin Ridley goes through the roof.
He doesn't have a Julio decoy game yet this year, so
Yeah,
he's
and
always good for one.
Yep. It is against the Panthers, which is a decent matchup. Not quite as good since Rivera took over the play calling, but yeah, Sanu and
Ridley
would both be excellent plays in that because Ryan has so many targets to distribute that normally go to Julio.
Mm-hmm. Juju Smith-Schuster, this is a true questionable with a groin injury.
Yep, he injured it on Thursday's practice. I think he's not going to go. I
don't either.
I like James Washington as a pickup here.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, especially when you look at Well, more on that later as far as the matchups go, but I do not think Juju goes. He seems frustrated.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's a great matchup. James Washington and DFS.
Yep.
That's where I'm excited.
T.Y.
Eli Rogers would be a sneaky one too.
Yeah. T.Y. Hilton had an ankle injury. He, I believe, played through this last week.
He played through it, and he got more practice in this week than he did last week. He's fine.
Yeah. Josh Doxson, lower back.
Kind of in the don't care column, but I think he probably plays through it this week.
Kiki Kuti, hamstring still, probably a no-go.
I think he's a no-go. I think Hopkins and Thomas will go. QT will not.
Yep.
And Randall Cobb with the concussion is doubtful.
I'm just ruling him out already. I'm making the call for the Packers.
Okay. Ricky Seals-Jones at tight end with an illness, if you were considering that.
You shouldn't have been, but yeah, I don't think he goes either. This popped Friday.
And then Patrick Peterson also with an illness.
I think he does go, but if he doesn't, it is a pretty big bump to Brandon Cooks and Jared Goff, who I really don't like coming into this unless Peterson misses.
Yep.
We got a question before we jump forward here from Dylan. He wants to know, this is actually a great question this week if you are concerned about Melvin Gordon and his workload. Yes, should I go Damian Williams over him this week in half-point PPR?
No, I didn't even really have to think too hard about that.
I can't quite get that cute. It's real close. I've got him probably like 10 and 14 for my rankings, but I can't quite get that cute. You just got Melvin Gordon back. You're riding him.
Yeah. This is a no for me. It's a no from me. You go Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we've got for news or ins and outs. Be sure to tune in on Sunday morning at 10:30 as Nick and I will be here to cover all of your official ins and outs. Also, be sure to keep an eye on those Saturday inactives. And let's go ahead and preview Championship Week.
Weekly preview.
All right, Nick, you are starting us off with an ugly one. Jaguars at the Dolphins. The Dolphins are favored by 4. It's only a 38.5-point over-under. Is there anything worth using in this game at all?
All right. Something I did do for every single game here is I did a list of players that you have zero reason to keep on your roster because you're not starting them. You don't care if your opponent picks them up. Roster slots if you're in your championship should be used for one of two things: players you're starting, players who are going to be plugins for players who are questionable heading into the game, or blocking your opponent. So you don't need Kessler, Yeldon, Moncrief, Cole, any of those type of players on this. There's only a couple players worth starting with Kessler as the starting quarterback. Fournette is good on paper. Dolphins have a terrible run defense, 4.65 yards per attempt allowed. But Fournette only got 1 carry in the second half last week after a decent first half. He's a mid to low running back too, with concerns about his workload, and I could see the Jaguars basically kind of phasing him out of the offense here. So if you're starting him, you are taking a bit of a risk in doing so.
Yep, I agree completely.
D.D. Westbrook is kind of the best wide receiver play. He runs out of the slot. He scored in 3 of his last 4 games, but there's not much of a ceiling though, because he's only averaging 44.5 yards per game on 4 receptions over his last 4. So he's a low wide receiver 3 play, and you're just kind of hoping for a touchdown. You probably can find better options in something like Deshaun Hamilton, Robert Foster, even James Washington if Juju misses. I'd all rather over Dede, but he's a name to know if you're looking for a floor play.
Yep.
Agreed. Tim Patrick.
And then the last piece of that I'm starting out of the Jaguars is the defense. They are a top 5 player this week. Tannehill has been sacked 14 times in the last 2 games. Jaguars have been okay this season. They haven't lived up to their lofty expectations coming into the year, but solid matchup to finish you off in week 16.
They're still top 5 to 7 against most positions.
Yep. It's the turnovers and the defensive touchdowns have really regressed to the mean, though, and they're not getting as many sacks.
Right. That's what makes them a back-end defense.
Yep. Last season they were a better fantasy defense than they even were NFL defense, and they were a really good NFL defense. This year they're a better NFL defense than fantasy defense.
Absolutely.
Yep.
For the Dolphins, you're dropping all pass catchers. You're dropping Ryan Tannehill. None of those are getting play there this week. Obviously, you already dropped Frank Gore. Drake is a desperation flex play because the volume just hasn't been there. He only has 20 touches in his last 3 games. That's not nearly enough against a good run defense in the Jaguars here. The only thing that saves him is he just seems to have an ability to score like every other week. So you might be able to get a touchdown out of it. I don't want to even think about starting Balaj, though. Outside of the weird Derrick Henry game, the Jags have been amazing against all running backs, not over the last month.
Yeah, and you're steering clear of all of that. Balaj don't get cute because the big run. And Kenyon Drake, like Nick said, it's just touchdown upside for whatever reason. They don't give him touches, even though the efficiency is there and the big playability is still shown to be there for Drake.
Yep. The only piece that I actually am kind of interested in starting is the Dolphins defense, because the Jaguars have scored just 28 total points in their last 3 games, giving up a minimum of 3 sacks per game and at least 1 turnover in all 3. And those are the 3 Cody Kessler games. Dolphins should get Xavier Howard back this week, which does massively help their defense. So not a bad situation here. They have a nose for getting a couple turnovers, getting a few sacks, and a decent floor play if you missed out on some of the better options this week.
Just remember, Blake Bortles was the problem.
Yes, obviously.
Obviously.
All right. Jumping over to you, Hopper. You got the Giants versus the Colts. Colts are favored by 9.5 and a 47-point over-under, so there should be a few more startable options out of this one.
There definitely are some interesting things in this one, but Eli Manning is not one of them. He doesn't have Odell Beckham. He has just 230 yards and 1 interception last week. He's also been very mediocre against solid to good defenses like Tennessee, Chicago, and Philadelphia. So you're not getting cute with that. Barkley, for him, 1 running back in 5 weeks who scored 15 points against the Colts. That was Kenyon Drake. That means Lamar Miller, Derrick Henry, Zeke Elliott, TJ Yeldon all failed to hit that mark. That being said, Barkley's going to be this whole offense, so the volume's there. And if you're in your championship with Barkley, he was likely a major piece of that, so there's no way you're sitting him. You're going to stay away from all of the wide receivers for the Giants in this one. Leonte Carew and a 74-yard bomb is the only 10-plus point wide receiver the Colts have allowed over the last 5 weeks. They've allowed just 4 wide receiver touchdowns since Week 8, 1 wide receiver to catch more than 5 passes since Week 6, and no 100-yard wide receivers since Week 4. And then Evan Ingram is really the only other piece on the Giants outside of Saquon Barkley I'm even kind of interested in starting, and it's just okay. He led the team in receiving yards last week. 5 of 6 guys to see over 5 targets have cleared 45 yards, but there's not a ton of touchdown upside against the Colts. They've allowed just 3 touchdowns position all year. So you're starting Evan Ingram. You're basically looking for slightly better than a tight end floor game.
Yep.
Anything else on the Giants before we move on to the Colts?
No, and it's losing Odell kind of really killed any upside on this offense outside of Ingram and Barkley.
I agree completely. All right, on to the Colts. For Andrew Luck, I'm okay with him, but don't expect too much. It's kind of a weird situation. The bad news is that the Giants have only allowed 1 quarterback over 20 points since Week 8 and just 1 multi-touchdown performance since Week 7. The good news, though, is that those quarterbacks were Marcus Mariota, Josh Johnson, Chase Daniel, Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston, Nick Mullins. And Alex Smith. So not really anyone of Luck's caliber. So I think he'll be okay in this one. I would start him without worrying about it. The guy that I really want to have in this matchup, though, is Marlon Mack. It's a fantastic matchup for him. The Giants have held only 1 back below 10 points all season. They've just 1 week over the last 5 where a running back hasn't scored against them, and they allow well over 100 rush yards a game. A little less optimistic about Hines just because I don't think the game script's going to mean the Colts have to throw a lot.
Yeah, the one thing I am worried about with Luck is all the touchdowns that could just bottom out Luck's floor, as we saw last week against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. So there are some concerns with Luck, but again, you kind of have to start him.
Yeah, it's still a good matchup for him.
Yeah. T.Y. Hilton doesn't have a fantastic matchup either in this one, believe it or not. Just 3 100-yard wide receivers allowed all season by the Giants, but they do give up touchdowns to position, 4 in the last 5 weeks to be exact. Hilton's targeted a ton, so I think his floor is probably wide receiver too, and he always has upside, so you're okay with T.Y. Hilton. And then Eric Ebron is kind of in the same boat as what Evan Ingram is in. The Giants actually don't allow a ton of tight ends either. A ton of touchdowns to tight ends either. However, they don't get targeted much. Ebron's going to be targeted, and anyone who's seen more than 4 targets is giving you the standard floor day, and Ebron's going to see well more than that, I would think. And But that being said, the Giants have allowed just 3 touchdowns to position. So while Ebron's safe, the upside is also limited with him. So both tight ends in this matchup, it's kind of the same story. The floor is probably going to be there, but the upside is going to be very, very low.
I'm still a little concerned just with how the game script last week and how we think the game script could be this week, where the Colts Luck didn't need Ebron to do anything. He had, 3 targets with 1 catch last week?
Yep.
So that's where I'm a little concerned with that.
Yep, and don't be afraid to ride the Colts defense, by the way. I preach that. I'm going to preach it until the end of the season, which is this week. Do not be afraid to start the Colts defense.
Nope. It's just kind of the Colts defense is the prime example of how we need a few weeks to start figuring stuff out, because we thought they were going to be just a complete dumpster fire, and they have massively overperformed expectations this year.
Darius Leonard's been great. They brought in a bunch of the right pieces, and even though there's not really any superstars outside of him on that defense, they play well together as an NFL defense, which is good for fantasy.
Yep.
On to the Buccaneers versus the Cowboys. Nick, you've got this one. It's a 47.5-point over-under. Cowboys favored by 7. What do you see?
All right, starting off with the Buccaneers side, a couple players that I am fine dropping into this matchup if they're not a possible start for you is all 3 receivers not named Evans, so Godwin, Jackson, Humphreys can all be dropped if you don't need them. I'm not scared of my opponent picking them up and starting them against me. Average game for quarterbacks against the Cowboys for their last 5 is 221 yards, 1.4 touchdowns, and an interception. This was against Ryan, Breeze, Wentz, Luck, and McCoy, who kind of doesn't quite fit the bill those previous 4. Winston could be droppable if you don't need him. This is a bad matchup, and I don't expect a lot of ceiling for him out of this game. Barber also can't be trusted. It's a tough matchup. Cowboys are allowing 3.77 yards per carry. Barber doesn't get enough work in the passing game. Another guy I would feel safe dropping if you don't need him as a desperation flex. The only reason I'm kind of hedging on some of these is because of how many injuries they've been. So you may need these guys, but also safe feeling droppable if you have to. With Jackson back this week, the only wide receiver you're starting is Evans. He always gets 6+ targets. This is a tough defense, allowing just 135 yards a game to the wide receiver position per week. So he's kind of in the high wide receiver 2, and then you're not starting the other 3 receivers. They split volume, and this is such a tough matchup that you're just not going to get the production there.
Mm-hmm.
Brait was Hopper's start of the week. I'm a little more tepid than him. Cowboys defense has been better since Sean Lee came back a couple weeks. They're giving up just 37 yards per game on the year. And the other issue for Brady's is he's averaging just 21 yards per game since Howard got hurt, and that's basically his average on the season as well. So basically you need a touchdown from Brady, or it's going to be pretty worthless for you.
Hey, it's viable, and there's not a lot to like at tight end this week.
That is true.
Red zone. He gets red zone work.
It's red zone looks.
Which is all you want sometimes.
There's a lot of grossness just in general this week.
Yeah. And then I never thought I'd be saying this with the way the season started, but the defense is actually kind of a sneaky play here. Buccaneers have caused 2+ turnovers in 4 straight, have 11 sacks over that stretch, and Dak Prescott's been sacked 51 times this season. So Buccaneers defense might actually be a decent play. Their edge rushers have gotten pretty good here over the last stretch.
They're on your waiver wire.
Yeah, I guarantee
that is a bold call if you go there. But
shout
out to you if you do and it pays off. I'm not doing that.
The numbers don't lie, and the Buccaneers defense has been so much better since.
I just like the Cowboys far more at home. They're just a far better team at home. That's my only concern.
Yep. Yeah, but Nick's seen exactly what I saw with this team over the last couple of weeks. That defense has not been stepped on since.
Well, I know.
I
agree there. Yeah, I agree with you there.
All right, for the Cowboys, you can drop Rod Smith as Zeke's handcuffed since Zeke's fine. You don't need him anymore. Beasley, Gallup, all the tight ends can all be safely dropped as well. Average stat line for quarterbacks against the Buccaneers over their last 6 is just 210 yards, 1.33 touchdowns, 1.16 interceptions, and 22.5 rushing yards. I included the rushing yards because they did face Lamar Jackson over that stretch. Good for just 13.72 fantasy points per game. So Dak is much better at home, but this is not the easy matchup we thought it was going to be a few weeks back. He's a high quarterback, too, mostly just due to the fact that he could rush in a touchdown.
Yep.
Zeke is my running back 1 this week, though. While the pass defense for the Buccaneers has gotten much better, run defense has not quite followed suit. They do allow 4.65 yards per carry and have allowed 21 running back touchdowns on the season. So the passing game's gotten better, running game not so much. And then before last week against the Ravens, who do not have a passing game. An opposing wide receiver had broken 74 yards in 4 straight games. It does tend to just be one receiver, though, so it's Cooper, and that's the only one you want to start in this game. Consider him a mid-wide receiver, too. This should be a bounce-back spot for him.
If he gets 8 targets, he's going to be a 1.
I have one quick shout out though. Blake Jarwin, back-to-back weeks with 7 targets in each game. He could be a tight end streaming option if you're desperate without Jeff Swaim on IR.
It's a good call.
Yeah.
Out.
I didn't see a lot of tight end production against the Buccaneers lately, but
I'm just saying it's tight ends. So if you need, if you're chasing targets, that's not a bad call.
Not a lot of tight end production against anybody for any tight end.
We have some questions rolling in. If
Sure.
you wanna
Sure,
jump
let's hit
those.
those.
Go for it.
So Austin Murray, this one's a little bit long, so I do apologize if we're trying to make it quick for you. He needs 1 running back, 1 receiver, and 1 flex.
Okay.
We're
So-
picking from Elijah McGuire, Chris Carson, Josh Adams,
Stop.
DJ.
Oh, wait, I see one more running back, Jamal Williams. So I want to stop at the running backs here.
Okay, we'll stop with the running backs: McGuire, Carson, and Jamal Williams.
It's McGuire and Carson out of those 4 would be the 2 I'm interested in.
Well, no, he needs 1 running back. Actually, for me, it's
He needs one.
I want Jamal Williams and Chris Carson for my running backs.
He needs a running back and a flex. So
Yep.
I need to know what the wide receivers are for the flex.
Okay,
yeah, so Carson is the running back.
Carson's
so
the
we'll start
running
there.
back so far.
Yep. and then the receivers are DJ Moore, Bayshawn Hamilton, and I don't know who Peterson is.
Patterson, maybe?
Cordero Patterson.
Well, it says Peterson.
Yeah, I don't know a Peterson.
Okay, or Jordy Nelson, which I don't hate Jordy. He's been very productive these last 3 games.
It's either Hamilton or Jordy.
It's probably Hamilton for me with the target volume he's been getting.
Adrian Peterson
Oh,
is the other one. I'm sorry.
sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a flex. So the answer to your entirety of a question for me is
It doesn't say scoring.
it's Carson, McGuire, and Hamilton for me. Just assuming half-point PPR.
I think for me it's Carson, Jamal Williams, and Jordy.
That's where I leaned from too.
He says full PPR. Well, then that makes Hamilton closer for me.
I changed mine to Carson, Hamilton, and Jamal Williams.
Yep. If full PPR, I agree with that because Hamilton should get at least 5 or 6 catches.
Keep listening because I've got both of the McGuire and Williams games, though, so you may want to hear the narrative, and that may sway it. So keep listening.
For sure. We're going to keep moving on with these questions. Corey Davis or Tim Patrick, full point PR.
I'm going Tim Patrick.
Tim Patrick. Yeah, Davis hasn't been getting the volume that he did earlier in the season. It's been Taywan Taylor that's been the best wide receiver for the Titans, weirdly enough.
And that stretches the term wide receiver. They're really not throwing the ball.
No, they're not.
They're all running now. Same. Dylan asked one more. Colts or Bears defense?
I think I might go Colts.
Yeah, screw it. Also go Colts. Mullins doesn't turn the ball over a lot, I think, and he doesn't get rid of the ball quick, so I don't know there's going to be a lot of upside for the Bears, even though I don't think they give up a ton.
I
So
agree
go
with
Colts.
that. Okay. Colts are all chalk for the 3 of us. Dak Prescott or Big Ben from Danny?
If Juju plays, it's Ben. If Juju's out, I probably go Dak.
I'm probably going Dak regardless.
Yeah, God, I love him at home. I love this matchup for him at home. I'm going Dak in this one. For Jimmy here, good morning, fellas. Good morning, man. If Gurley were to sit, CJ Anderson or Jordan Howard, full point PPR. I'm Jordan Howard for me.
Howard, I don't necessarily trust that Anderson is going to see a ton of touches. I think he and Kelly split pretty close.
Yeah, he's new to the offense too. Howard's got an RB2 grade for me this week, so I'm fine starting him.
Jimmy again, Austin Hooper or Cameron Brate.
Cameron Brate.
I'm assuming full PPR on this one. If Julio doesn't go, I'm
Julio
going
plays,
Hooper.
Yeah, Julio plays into that. It's Brate for now. If Julio doesn't play, though, that changes for me.
I think I go Hooper either way.
Yeah, I'm with Hooper.
I also have that game, so stay tuned.
Tight end dart throw. Would you play Jarwin over Goddard?
Yeah.
Oof.
Depends if you're going for
the guy who's
safe
getting the most targets.
if you go for safe or blow up, because Goddard's getting about 4 targets a game, so he's not involved. And he's flashed quite a bit over the last couple weeks, and this is a really nice matchup. So I still think I lean Goddard, unless you're like, hey, I need 30 yards and 3 catches, in which case I'd go Jarwin.
Yeah, it depends on your projections. I'm with Nick on this one, though. Goddard, I think, does have more upside, but Jarwin gives you a better floor. So if you're in a position where you got to find some points someplace, though, and need guys to overperform, Goddard's a better bet for that.
Yeah, I think it's way more likely Goddard scores than Jarwin.
Yeah.
Goddard's got a great matchup. I don't know how much Nick Foles uses his tight ends, though. That's my only concern.
Goddard had a couple targets last week, early in the game. So
Yeah, that's only a couple. That's
He
why.
uses Jeffrey a lot more than Wentz does. So
Yeah, he likes to push the ball down more vertically. Anyways, Danny wants to know he got traded Amari. He got Amari Cooper for Robert Woods in a trade, 1.25 PPR, and then he asked, should I start Amari Cooper over T.Y. Hilton? And my answer is yes.
yes.
no, I think I still go Hilton.
It's the yo-yo game for Amari Cooper, and this week is his boom week at home. Those are all the questions, though.
I do like the
All right.
matchup more for Cooper also. The Giants really are not giving up a ton to wide receivers.
All right. Well, we're going back to Hopper. We're up next. Falcons, Panthers. Falcons favored by 3.5, 43.5 point over under in this game.
Sweet. We get to immediately talk Austin Hooper, actually, but we're going to start with Matt Ryan first. He's been very good this year, and aside from Monday night showing against Breeze on the road, Carolina's defense has been average at best. They are better with Rivera calling plays, but Breeze is just the second quarterback all season. The Panthers have kept under 15 points. Ryan had 4 total touchdowns in this matchup earlier, and he's just always got upside week in, week out. So, especially the Falcons playing from behind a lot. So, I do like Matt Ryan this week as a start. Tevin Coleman, what?
Breaking news.
Yes.
Lamar Miller and Kiki Kuti did not travel with the team. They are out.
All
so
right.
start Alfred Blue.
Alfred Blue.
Ooh.
Alfred Blue. Or has Foreman been activated yet?
He is active. They have not reported if he will play or not.
Interesting. Just be wary of that. Anyway, back to the Falcons. Tevin Coleman is a mid to high running back 2 this week with no Ito Smith steal carries. He should well clear the 10 to 11 a week mark he's been getting. He went for 106 yards his last time out against Carolina, and Carolina is giving up about 1 touchdown a week over the last 5 games, but also holding back to under 4 yards a carry. So this is a volume-based play with some touchdown upside. You're okay with starting him as your running back 2. Julio Jones is always good, assuming he actually plays. Be wary of the hip injury, but Calvin Ridley is the guy that really jumps off the page for me against the Panthers. He's a slot wide receiver. We've talked about it for weeks at a time. I'm not going to dive into the numbers again. We know the Panthers are bad against slot wide receivers, and the target volume will go up if Julio does not play. And for Austin Hooper, I'm going to sit him in this one. Since giving up back-to-back double-digit games in weeks 9 and 10, the Panthers haven't allowed a tight end to go over 4 points. That included games against Brayton and Njoku, who, while they're not world beaters at tight end, they still usually do better than 4 points a game. They've also not allowed a touchdown in that since week 9 and 10 to the position. So, yes, Hooper's upside does increase a bit, but the Panthers have been very, very good against tight ends down the stretch. That's all I got on the Falcons.
All right.
Doesn't Sanu play from the slot, though, more than Ridley?
They split pretty evenly.
They split. Okay.
So
I like them both, too, especially if Julio doesn't go.
if Julio doesn't go, I like them both. I do like Ridley a little bit more. As for the Panthers, Cam's out. Don't get cute with Taylor Heineke. There's not really a big book on Heineke, so I'm going to do my best to project this offense. But he hasn't had a start yet, so you don't really know what he's going to target, how he's going to be utilized, what he can do. You expect to see a ton of CMC in a plus matchup. He's going to be a running back 1 easily. Don't really require any analysis on Christian McCaffrey at this point. He's a great dual threat. DJ Moore is the only guy you want in this one wide receiver-wise. And if you had a better option, I would probably take that one. The book is really thin on Heineke, so you don't really know how he's going to use his people. But the Falcons have allowed just Devontae Adams to have a wide receiver 2 or better day over the last 5 weeks. A lot of single-digit performances being the top wide receivers against the Falcons, so I don't love DJ Moore much at all. Ian Thomas, on the other hand, may be worth a dart throw, and that's purely based on the fact that he's a safety blanket or could be used as a safety blanket for Heineke. I'm not endorsing him as my start of the week. I'm not really endorsing him saying you have to start him or should, but especially against a team that's only allowed 2 tight ends to reach double digits this year and just 3 over 50 yards, but he's kind of a YOLO dart throw type of play just because of how we see young quarterbacks use tight ends. And again, that's not really based on anything. That's more of a gut feel because there's not a lot to base it on. So the Panthers offense outside of CMC, pretty skeptical.
Yep.
Put a bow on that.
Quick back to the Sanu Ridley thing. I just looked up their snap percentages. Sanu gets about 60% of the snaps in the slot and about 20% for Ridley, and then the rest of it goes somewhere else.
Gotcha. Okay, flip them. I guess I still like Ridley a lot if Julio doesn't play though.
Yeah,
Agreed.
But maybe Sanu over Ridley then. Sanu's been quiet all year. He's not a name we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, he's had a couple nice plays, but it's been mostly quiet.
They've both been quiet since Ridley kind of broke out early season.
Yeah. All right, that's all I got on that game. Dan, we're finally going to let you talk. Vikings versus the Lions. Vikings favored by 5.5 on the road, 42.5 point over under.
But before we get to my game, you got some more questions to answer.
Sweet.
I apologize if I butcher your name, but Varun, he has a flex spot open. He's got Marlon Mack, Jalen Samuels, or Jamal Williams. Who do you think is better for my championship week?
I'm going to slap the Mac button.
It's Mac.
I am jumping at Mac as fast as I possibly can on that one.
Return of the Mac. And then those are all that we got for those questions.
All right.
We'll move on to my game. All right, Vikings, Lions. Start with the Vikings here. If you played Cousins last week, he kind of rewarded you with a decent game, but it was his lowest passing attempts on the season. If their Vikings were trying to focus more on the running game, and this could happen again this week, as the Lions are not the powerhouse offense that we have once seen. They're only averaging 15.5 points over the past 4 games. So Cousins is just a Cousins is just a QB2 for me this week, as he may not need to throw a lot again to win this game. On the other hand, though, I do love Cook this week, especially if Snacks Harrison doesn't play. He's posted at least 17 touches over his past 3 games. Each game he's gone over 4 yards per carry, and he's at least 80 yards total in all 3 of those games. Cook for me is the mid to high RB2 for me this week with RB1 upside. Even Latavius Murray could be considered in flex range in deeper leagues, given the Vikings' newfound love to run the football more. As for the receivers, with the offense going more balanced to slightly run heavy, the passing game has taken a slight dip. Diggs and Thielen are still considered wide receiver 2s with their usual wide receiver 1 upside. Given just what we've seen from them this year, it's going to be very difficult to sit them. So don't expect maybe blow-up games. I like Thielen's matchup a little bit more than Diggs. But they both are still 2s for me. Rudolph is barely a streamable tight end anymore. He hasn't seen over 5 targets over his past 3 games, and since week 8, he's done that twice. Defense is a great play. Lots of chance for sacks. Any questions or concerns on the Vikings?
Nope.
No, not at all. They're pretty chalk. They're one of the easier teams to preview.
Yeah, and
about 4 players to worry about, and that's it.
Yeah.
We're gonna go on to the Lions here. I'm gonna take a page out of Nick's playbook here. You're not gonna play Stafford, any of the running backs with Kerryon on IR, and you're only gonna start Kenny Galladay. Last time out in Week 9 against the Vikings, he went 3 for 46 and 4 targets. I expect those targets to increase, of course, as the only pass catcher in this offense. It's still a very difficult matchup, so it's still a wide receiver 3 just based on the volume alone, but there is some upside if you can break one. And then defense is a bit boom-busty here. They are at home, and Cousins has been pretty reckless with the football in the year. He's been up and down with the turnovers, and he takes sacks. So Lions not a bad call if you're looking for a sneaky defensive play.
One last thing I forgot to put in the notes before. Blunt is questionable. If he doesn't go, Zenner could be a desperation flex option.
Yeah, you'd have a running back 3 grade on him, but he would get all of the volume for the most part.
Yeah, he'd have all the goal line work. There wouldn't be any concerns about Blunt stealing the touchdown, so he'd at least be a flex desperation type play.
That's a good shout out. If Blunt doesn't go, Zenner does have the faint touchdown upside if they get to the red zone and to the goal line.
Anything else on that game, Dan?
No, that was gross.
That was pretty quick. All right, on back to Nick. Texans versus the Eagles. Eagles favored by 2.5 at home. 46 point over under. Nick, what do you got in this one?
All right, starting with the Texans, some droppable players for you. You can safely drop Kuti and Miller. They've both been ruled out already. All the tight ends do not need to be owned. Texans defense, you're not holding in this particular matchup. The average stat line given up by the Eagles against lately has been 293 yards, 1.5 touchdowns, and 6.6 interceptions is the average performance by average or better quarterback since week 4. So I removed Eli, Sanchez, and Bortles from that list. Everyone else they faced, including guys like Dak, Mariota, and some other pretty average quarterbacks, they've been giving up just tons of yards and touchdowns. So I do like Watson a lot this week. He's a top 6 play for me. Eagles have allowed 98 total yards to the starting back in 6 straight weeks. They've gone from a good running defense to start the season to one of the worst in the NFL. With Miller out, I consider Blue a mid to low RB3. It'll be interesting to see if Foreman gets involved as well.
Is he active?
He's active, but we don't know what his role is going to be or if he's even going to
Okay. Okay.
He's more of a player to watch than to think about starting this week also, just because if he does get some touches, I'm interested to see how he's doing. He's over a year removed from that Achilles injury, so you should start to see him look decent.
Yep.
Yeah, he's had enough time to work back at this point where he should be approaching probably 80 to 90% of where he was. But unless you're in a 20-team start 10 league, you're not rolling Foreman out.
Right.
Eagles have allowed almost 200 wide receiver yards per game. There's no QT in this one, so Hopkins is a locked-in top 3 play, and Demaryius Thomas is actually a mid-wide receiver 3 option with some upside here. Eagles just get torched in the secondary. I'm skipping the tight end shuffle with the 3 tight ends the Texans like to roll out. And then up to this point, the Texans have been set and forget for most of the season, but the Eagles have scored 23-plus in 4 straight games. They've only been sacked 5 times over that stretch and only 3 turnovers. I would just straight drop the Texans defense and find a better option.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Especially that secondary. That secondary for Houston has gotten pretty torn up. And the Eagles have a good offensive line, so the pass rush getting home is not a guarantee in this one.
Yeah, you're basically just hoping for Nick Foles himself.
And if you look at the stats, has there been a player that's been more overrated this season than Clowney?
No.
He's got like 8 sacks and he made the Pro Bowl. I don't get it.
Well, you can't just judge it on
Darius
sacks. There's
Leonard
more.
Darius Leonard leads the league in tackles and didn't. Like, Pro Bowl doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. Onto the Eagles, though. Some droppable players. Wentz, if you hadn't already. You don't need to keep Sproles. Nelson Aguilar is safely droppable. Eagles defense also not starting in this matchup. By the way, I'm taking the over in this game.
Yes.
Foles was my start of the week because average game for quarterbacks against the Texans over the last 4 weeks has been 338 yards, 1.75 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's good for 21.5 fantasy points per game, 5 more than the NFL average has been since over that 4-game stretch. I want nothing to do with any of the Eagles' backs, though. Texans have allowed just 66 rushing yards per game this season, so you desperately need a touchdown. The only angle I saw was if Adams was out, but he's off the injury report, so you can't even try to split between Smallwood and Adams. With Adams going, I'm benching both. On the receiver end, though, Texans have allowed 96-plus yards to 4 straight wide receiver ones, including Corey Davis, Jarvis Landry, T.Y. Hilton, and Robbie Anderson. 3 of those aren't necessarily world beaters. 2 of the 4 also scored, so Jeffrey's an awesome play this week. Probably the highest ranking we've had on him in a month and a half. We got him as a mid-wide receiver, too. Tate's on the bench, just 8 total targets in his last 2 games, not enough volume to chase. And then Aguilar straight droppable because these are his targets over the last 5 games. 2, 1, 8, 3, 2.
Yeah, the trade for Tate made him completely not trustable.
Yeah, outside of the 1 game we popped off for 8 targets, he's just done nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Goddard was my start of the week, as mentioned on Wednesday's episode. Go back and listen to that for the full argument. Both Ertz and Goddard are top 15 plays this week. Houston is just beginning shredded by tight ends.
Indeed.
Next to Packers versus the Jets. Packers are 2.5-point favorites on the road. They have not won a road game yet this season, though. They're 0-7. 46-point over under. Hopper, what do we see in this one?
All right, starting with the Packers, and this is where the Jamal Williams and Elijah McGuire arguments will show up. Rodgers is an absolute start against a trash Jets secondary. That's pretty easy. As for the running game, Jamal Williams is a volume-based running back too, and you probably should play him in most scenarios. Chris Ivory, Alfred Blue, and Frank Gore all had bad games against this defense, but every other starting back has cleared 10 points. He didn't look bad last week against Chicago either, and was pretty good against Atlanta from an efficiency standpoint, even though he didn't get a ton of carries. The wide receiver position is where this gets interesting. Devontae Adams is a week-to-week set and forget. But the Jets do also tend to give up a ton to slot receivers, as 10 of the top scoring wide receivers against them played out of the slot, which points to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who played mostly out of the slot against the Bears last week, and Drew Sherrick McManus. He would be the guy that I want to target if Cobb can't go, just based on the way they use him in ESB. ESB plays more outside than MVS does. So there's just a matchup there I saw that I liked. And I don't trust Jimmy Graham. He's giving you just 2 startable days in 7 weeks, regardless of matchup. And the Packers' defense is streamable this week against a quarterback on the Jets and Sam Darnold that likes to turn the ball over.
Though he has been better lately, so I would say
It's a low stream.
cautious stream.
I don't even like. I don't.
It's a low.
Just of least looked better with Darnold the last couple weeks. No,
He
it's
looked better, but he's also not a world beater at quarterback. So
no, of course.
like I said, it's a deep one. As for the Jets, don't get cute with Sam Darnold. He's got a good matchup, but he's not been startable all year. I mean, last week was his best performance, and it was a 2 touchdowns, 0 interception, 200 some odd yard deal. So you're not going to trust him in championship week.
Yep.
Elijah McGuire is going to have the backfield to himself, and it's another volume-insulated running back, too. The Packers have held the team's top back under double-digit points just 3 times all season. And the Jets are going to use McGuire down on the goal line. This gives him some solid touchdown upside. I do tend to like him slightly more than Jamal Williams just because we've seen Elijah McGuire perform better than what Jamal Williams has looked when they have had their chances. That's more of my reason for that. I think the Jets and Packers run defenses are pretty similar. I expect them to see similar volume. But I just think that Elijah McGuire is the better of those 2 backs. Robbie Anderson's the only wide receiver here that you want to trust. The Packers' secondary is marginal and young. Anderson's given you over 75 yards and a touchdown each of the last 2 weeks. His report is Darnold continues to grow, and there's no Quincy Enunwa.
I love Robbie Anderson this week. 29% target share average over his last 2 games.
Yeah, he's finally looking decent. He's going to be another player like Derrick Henry that could win you your league.
Yep.
And then Chris Herndon, he's also a very good start. The Jets do target the tight ends. Like with Ebron and Ingram, it's mostly going to be floor, however. Green Bay's allowed just 2 tight end touchdowns this year, so while they will give up yards, it's not going to be a ton of upside. And then don't start the defense. That's all I got. Anybody else got anything on that game?
Nope. Sorry.
Okay. On to the Bengals and Browns. Dan, this is yours. Browns are favored by 9. It's a 44.5-point over-under.
That's actually moved up to 10 now, by the way.
Jesus.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's gone out of wanting to bet territory. But either way, we'll start with the Bengals here. Well, the Browns are in okay matchup for quarterbacks. I'm not trusting Driscoll in my champ week. This one, I don't think he's terrible in 2 QB leagues though. He's only had 1 game over 200 yards in just 1 multi-touchdown game. He did that against the Browns his first start though, and back in week 12 when he had 1 rushing and 1 passing. Not cute though. Mixon is where I think this is where the game's going to go. Though he's been banged up through the week. He did put in a full practice and on Friday and should be in line to see his usual 25+ target that he's seen over the last 2 games. Mixon's the RB1 for me this week. I don't want none of the receivers. John Ross, maybe if you're looking for a desperation dart throw, touchdowns for some, or he gets targets in the red zone for whatever reason. And I expect his target volume to slightly increase without Tyler Boyd in this game. And then Huzama, he's got the targets that we love to see. He's not on the same page with Driscoll though, and so if you're looking for targets to chase, you could get some. But again, he's more of a guy I trust in 2 tight end leagues, not in 1 tight end leagues, and the defense is never a go. Anything on the Bengals? Anything else on the Bengals?
No.
Okay, thank you. Browns. Baker killed it last time against the Bengals here, posting 258 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. I expect the Browns to keep the gas or to keep the pedal going here for this game as they're itching for a playoff berth. Though they need some help, so I do expect them to keep the game going here for Baker. He's a low QB1 for me with upside. And just like Baker, Nick Chubb killed it last time out against the Bengals. Posted 128 total yards, 2 touchdowns. It's been very good. He's been very good since taking over for Hyde in week 7. He's the RB6 since then, posting on average 17.5 points per game in half-point PPR leagues. Landry's in the receiver core, though, has been a bit difficult to trust. Landry still hasn't seen double-digit targets since week 9. It's been over 100 yards just once receiving-wise. He did it with rushing and receiving a couple weeks ago. He's more of a low-end 2 for me, just given what we've seen from him in terms of target upside, but he still has his usual upside because he's the number 1 in this offense. Callaway and Brashad Perriman are more wide receiver 4s and 5s. I do expect him to take a few deep shots with both of them, but I'm not really getting that cute with them in my championship game. And then Njoku hasn't quite broken out in the way that we all thought he would this season. He's been very up and down. 6 targets is his high in a game since week 7, and he's only posted 1 game with 5 receptions or more. Bengals have given up 8 tight end touchdowns on this season, tied for second most, and also given up 56.7 yards per game. 2 tight ends this season as well. So Njoku does have some upside if you want to go that route. And then the Browns defense is a good streaming option this week. Before the Raiders game last week, the Bengals were averaging just 17 points per game. And that was since their bye week. Anything more on the Browns?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, we'll move back to Nick here. Bills versus Patriots. Patriots are favored by 13 and a 44.5 point over under. Nick, what do we got here?
Look at everybody throwing things to each other. I like the way this is working.
All right. For the Bills, droppable players, Ivory, Ford, Zay Jones, Bills defense, all have been kind of interesting plays over the last couple of weeks and no longer only players you're interested in. Josh Allen has been a total boom bust type play, but he's been awesome for 4 straight weeks. He is your QB1 over that stretch with 99 rushing yards or a rushing touchdown in all 4. He's a high quarterback 2, upside streaming options, but you are worried that maybe Belichick has a trap set for him here and he could end up totally busting. So
is the trap that the Patriots defense suddenly got good?
Yeah, his record against rookie quarterbacks and what he does to rookie quarterbacks is absurd. So there's some history there. I'm going to be debating down to the wire for the Chargers kickoff today, Allen or Rivers.
Josh Allen. It's weird to say, but I love his upside.
Doesn't feel weird to me.
We know with you.
Patriots run defense isn't good, but you can't trust LaShawn McCoy on anything more than an RB3, even a plus matchup. He only has 2 total touchdowns in the season. They came in the same game, and 2 games with 100-plus total yards. He has been awful this year.
Terrible. Just
terrible.
Terrible.
The good news is, though, speed receivers have done well against the Patriots, and Robert Foster has averaged a stat line of 88 receiving yards with 0.4 touchdowns per game over his last 5. He can be safely started as a high wide receiver 3 this week. Zay Jones has dudded you back-to-back games, though. He can be safely dropped heading into the title game.
Oh, Robert Foster, how I like the...
I'm gonna start him in my semifinals and finals in back-to-back weeks. It's weird.
I'm gonna feel good about it too.
I don't even hate Isaiah McKenzie this week.
I would start McKenzie over Jones, but I don't want to start either.
Yeah.
I'm more apt to believe in the Loch Ness Monster than believe Charles Clay exists at this point, and you're not starting the Bills' defense on the road in New England. For the Patriots, you can drop Josh Gordon, Rex Burkhead, and I think Tom Brady safely at this point.
Yeah.
The average stat line against the Bills over their last 7 is 176 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, and Brady was included in that list in their previous matchup. There's no Gordon. I think you just drop Brady and hope your opponent's trap starts him.
I got to pick up a Brady replacement someplace, I think.
Running game has been the best spot to attack the Bills, though. It's been ugly for Michelle, White, and Burkhead over the last 3, though. They're eating into each other's work. Last time, White was the only healthy one. He had 94 total yards with a touchdown, but I think Michelle gets the most work in this one. So I've got Michelle as a mid to low running back 3, White is a low running back 3, high running back 4, and Burkhead should be on your waiver wire.
Michelle does dominate the carries. That's the only...
Yeah, he hasn't been great with them lately, but he does dominate them.
Saving grace, yeah, I agree.
So White doesn't shadow into the slot. Only 2% of his snaps are there. So Edelman should be fine as a wide receiver 2. I expect him to see a lot of work. He's got 84-plus yards in 4 of his last 5 games. Hogan, Dorsett, Patterson are all bench dropped, though. Whoever is acting as the default 2, which I assume will be Hogan, is going to get shadow covered by White. So you can say goodbye to them. Bills are a bad tight end matchup as well, but Gronk has popped in 2 of his last 3 games, and this may be his last fantasy ride in New England that you can enjoy. So if you're in your championship with Gronk, roll him out there and enjoy the fun.
Hopefully.
Patriots defense is a riskier play against Allen than they were in week 8 against Derek Anderson and Nathan Peterman. Allen actually doesn't get sacked much. You're basically hoping for interceptions in a low-scoring game. So I still have him top 12, but barely. And that's all I got. We're on to a beer review.
On to the beer review.
Beer review.
All right, Dan, what did you think of Point's whatever it is that you've got? I don't remember the name of it.
Point is Snow Pilot from Point. It's it's pistachio nut brown ale. I've had this a few days ago and wasn't a big fan of it. I gave it a second chance here, and I've actually really enjoyed this time around. This pistachio really mixes in well with the brown ale, and it kind of gives it that really sweet taste. It's not overbearing, which I thought it was more so the first time I had it. It's very smooth. It's almost like a caramel type of finish to it. It's not overly bitter, of course, for it being a brown ale, and it's very medium, easy drinking, and I think it's very enjoyable for this time of the year.
All right, Nick, how's the nothing you're drinking?
Doing this show without a beer is a significant downgrade. Consider me doubtful.
There's no beer in the house at all for you?
No, there's no beer at my parents' house now.
There's no wine. You could, take shots of things.
I think
I'm
10:30 in the morning is a little too early for wine.
Oh,
Is it?
I could do beer.
Shame.
I could do beer this early, but not wine.
All right, and then I was sipping on Evil Twin Brewing's E is for elderberry. It was a Ghost style ale brewed with salt and elderberry added. It's very solid Gosa, definitely very tart. I think that the salt actually doesn't complement the elderberry so much as it does kill it a bit. Salt goes better with citrus than it does sweet. So I think that the salt kind of kills the elderberry flavor, but overall, still a very, very solid Gosa, very drinkable, low alcohol content, great for a morning show.
Sounds good.
All right. That's all I got. Kicking it to myself, I've got the Bears against the 49ers. Bears are favored by 4 in this one. It's a 43-point over-under. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Mitchell Trubisky, who was my start of the week. For the last 5 quarterbacks San Francisco has faced have cleared 20 points. They have just 2 interceptions on the year, which I had to triple check because that seems like an insanely low number.
It's true.
It's been a while, too.
Yes.
It's been a long time.
It has been. And they've allowed 12 touchdowns since week 10. So Mitchell Trubisky, absolutely locked and loaded quarterback 1. Jordan Howard gets another running back 2 grade this week based on game script and based on San Francisco allowing solid production to Chris Carson last week. Tariq Cohen is always flex worthy, especially against his average at best run defense. So both Bears running backs against San Francisco is fine. You basically just take what you think of a running back in a vacuum and apply it to when they play San Francisco. San Francisco is very bad against the wide receiver position, so Allen Robinson has a ton of upside in this one if you can trust the volume. They've held just 2 top-scoring wide receivers below 10 points and are giving up nearly 30 points to position on the season. That does make Taylor Gabriel also startable, and speed guys have done okay against the 49ers. So Gabriel's actually more of a flex play, but Allen Robinson I'm okay having a back-end wide receiver 2 role. It's just volume concerns for them to me. Mm-hmm. And just say no to Trey Burton. He's been widely inconsistent. Teams don't need to use a tight end against San Francisco. Only Cameron Braid has scored more than 8 points against them since week 6.
Wow.
So, and it's just a volume thing, purely. They don't have to go to the tight end.
Yep.
As for San Francisco, and Bears defense, obviously, defense 1. As for San Francisco, Nick Mullins don't necessarily get cute. Chicago just held Goff and Rodgers to terrible performances. I did say earlier that, yes, they are missing 2 key parts of the secondary. Mullins does get the ball out quick, but that does not equal a startable fantasy day necessarily. You're going to avoid the backfield entirely, even with Matt Breida healthy. Chicago has a fantastic run defense, and that portion of it is healthy. What they are missing is cover guys, not front 7 and run stuffers. Dante Pettis is the only guy I'm considering, and he's merely a wide receiver 3 in this one with no Callahan. And the report he's shown with Mullins, he should, with a healthy Goodwin, be running out of the slot, which is where Callahan would have covered, so he'll get Sherrick McManus. And there's no Eddie Jackson to help cover the top. So I do like Dante Pettis as a dart throw. And then George Kittle, There's no way you're not starting him. He's been absolutely insane. And again, the Bears missing Eddie Jackson does help make that a little bit more comfortable for you. And then stay away from the Niners defense. I shouldn't have to say that.
All right.
Oh, and Robbie Gould revenge game.
Yay.
So there's that.
There's that.
All right, Rams Cardinals. Nick, Rams are favored by 14 in this one. 44-point over under. Go ahead.
And it's a road game for the Rams, and they're favored by 14.
It is a road game.
Droppable players. I could see an argument for dropping Goff, and you can safely drop both the tight ends. Goff has been just terrible over his last 3 games. He's averaging 242 yards per game with 7 interceptions and just 1 touchdown over that stretch. You may be able to drop him for someone better because this is a tougher matchup than the Eagles and Lions were in 2 of his last 3 games. He's just been terrible. Gurley is a must start if he goes, but he has not practiced this week. No sure thing he plays. And even if he plays, he might not get 100% of snaps. So he's probably more of a back end running back one if he goes. If you own Gurley, you need to go pick up CJ Anderson. Davis is also hurt. Kelly doesn't appear to have the trust of the coaches, which is surprising. Don't love Anderson, but if he gets the start, he has shown a full workload in the NFL, and he's definitely startable as a running back 3 if he gets the start in this matchup. All Gurley owners should be nervous and must have contingency plans in place in case Gurley doesn't go.
Ooh.
Last time these 2 teams played, Cooks was the one who killed him, but now that Woods has moved into the slot, I expect Cooks gets shadowed by Peterson. This is if he goes. He is questionable. Makes him a high wide receiver 3 at best in a tough matchup. I think Woods gets the most volume. He's a mid wide receiver 2, getting a lot of yards but no scores lately. And then Reynolds is a low wide receiver 3, basically just on target volume. Bad matchup for tight ends. Drop both. You don't need them here. And then Rams defense is a top play this week. Cardinals just are phoning in at this point. Their offense has gone away. For the Cardinals, you can drop Rosen, Edmonds, Ricky Seals-Jones. Only players I'm looking at is David Johnson, who's the only one I'm even confident in. Rams are a pretty subpar run defense, surprisingly. Johnson's been solid in the games this season. He's a mid to high running back 2 in your championship week. Fitzgerald is the tougher start. Rams are better against wide receivers. Rosen's going to be under pressure all game with their offensive line completely decimated. Treat him as a wide receiver 3, but I'll avoid him if I can because this thing could go completely underwater in a hurry. And then Trent Sherfield is a desperation wide receiver 4 just based on target volume. For tight ends, just straight up fuck Ricky Seals-Jones. His season stats are 69 targets, 33 receptions, 340 yards, and 1 touchdown.
Jesus,
he's been a bust this year.
That's so bad.
That's a good 2 games for George Kittle.
Yeah.
Right?
Cardinals do not have an interception since week 7, and they're going to get dunked on here. Don't start their defense.
Yep.
Steelers versus the Saints is up next. Hopper's got this game. Saints are 6-point favorites at home, though I expect that the Saints will cover with Juju does not go, and it's a 53-point over-under.
More importantly, my last game preview of the season.
That was I got to finish on Rams Cardinals, so you get a better one at least.
I do get a better one. Let's start with the Steelers. Ben was my sit of the week, and I still don't like him, even though I revisited the numbers. He's much more of a quarterback 2 for me. Saints have 6 interceptions in 5 weeks. He's playing on the road. And he may not have Juju, which just brings that down even more.
Yep.
Samuels is a back-end running back, 2 for me this week with no Connor. He got it done last week and does have receiving upside, but he's also going up against the Saints defense. It's allowing less than 14 points a game to the position. The good news is that 14-point average should all be Jalen Samuels. So,
and I expect a lot of pass-catching work if Juju doesn't go.
Yeah, so he is slightly ahead. He's right there with McGuire and Williams in that same tier for me. Antonio Brown, you're absolutely going to start, especially if Juju doesn't go. Juju's a low wide receiver 2 for me anyway if he does go. New Orleans is allowing just 13.3 points to the position over the last 3 weeks, and only Calvin Ridley has topped double digits against them in the last 6 weeks. I think that was week 6 that he did that, actually. The good news is Juju does play the slot, so we would likely deal with Eli Apple and P.J. Williams, not Lattimore. So James Washington, if Juju doesn't go, is interesting, as Nick mentioned, because the matchup is going to be good and he should get target volume.
Mm-hmm.
The tight ends, you'd be hoping for a touchdown at best. And really the only thing the tight ends have done against the Saints was Manhurt's 50-yard catch from McCaffrey and Brate's 2 touchdowns on 12 yards. So other than that, the Saints haven't really allowed anything all season. Just 4 touchdowns on the year, just 516 yards to the tight end position. So stay away from McDonald and Jesse James.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to finish up. I don't trust Pittsburgh's defense either, by the way. And we're going to finish up with the Saints, who are at home. Breeze is an absolute go in this one. Pittsburgh's allowed multiple touchdowns in 4 of the last 6 and 275 or more yards in the last 3. They're playing on the fast track, so I love Breeze. I love both Kamara and Ingram. They're must-starts in this one for me. 4 of the last 6 running backs have been over 14 points. The Saints' run offense is good, and the Steelers' run defense is just merely average as of late. Michael Thomas and nobody else at wide receiver. That's just status quo. And then no Saints tight ends on this one ever, because you don't know if it's going to be Watson, Hill, or Arnold on any given week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the defense at home, just don't necessarily get cute with that. I see a scenario where they're startable, but I don't want to trust it in championship week.
Agreed. Though I am desperately trying to stash Saints defense in dynasty leagues because their second half resurgence has been awesome.
Yep, and it more mirrors what we saw in 2017. 2017. I forgot what year it was for a second. Anyway, Dan, you are finishing out the season for us. You've got the last 2 games, starting with Chiefs versus the Seahawks. Chiefs are favored by 2.5. It's 53.5 point over/under. Should be a lot of fantasy value in this one to be had.
Yeah, we'll start with the Chiefs here. You're going to go with their usual starters, Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. Seattle's been a mixed bag against QBs all season long. Case Keenum, Jared Goff twice, Aaron Rodgers, and Nick Mullins all had over 300-yard games against them. You're always going to start Mahomes anyways. And this game could see elements of the Rams-Chiefs game from a few weeks ago, as the scoring could be very quick and very in large amounts here. As for Hill, you're just not going to sit him. He's been a little boom bust. He's a little bit banged up. But so is Seattle secondary. So I expect Hill to be just fine. And Kelsey's Kelsey. He is your tight end 1 going into next year. With Spencer Ware out, or at least likely out, Damian Williams should get to start and see the bulk of the carries. He had 16 touches last week against the Chargers for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Well, you may not see those multi-touchdowns. Seahawks have struggled to stop their running back. 4.6 yards per carry allowed in the season in both games over their last 3. Jeff Wilson had over 4 yards per carry. Delvin Cook was 4.23 in week 14. Damian should be considered a high RB2 or a mid RB2 with RB1 upside, and not getting cute with the defense on the road. Anything else on the Chiefs?
Nope.
All right, Seahawks. So many points to be had in this game, and Russell Wilson is a great play. He's massively efficient with the football, and his touchdown efficiency has been incredible this season, sitting at 8.2%. And over his past 3 games, his touchdown rate has been 8.8. Russ is a mid QB1 with top 3 upside. Over his past 5 games, Chris Carson's averaging 83 rushing yards per game. This is the same notes I used for him as my start of the week, so I apologize if you're hearing this again for the second time. He's had 4 touchdowns during that 5-game span. He's cut all 6 of his targets last week, so I do expect him to be okay in the passing game. Chiefs are giving up 127 rushing yards per game and 5 yards per carry on the season, and 1 rushing touchdown in every game since week 7. I love Chris Carson this week. Receivers have been a bit of a headache to own this year. Passing attempts have been pretty down for Russ in most weeks, though Baldwin and Lockett could be in line for huge games. They both have not seen a lot of targets over their past 2, just 10 for Baldwin and 8 for Lockett. So they do have their floor a little bit lowered, but the upside for both of them could be huge, as this could be a very high-throwing game. And guys, you could pivot to if you need somebody in the 3 o'clock games. If you need more boom in your 3 o'clock games. Never the tight ends here. And this is a very underrated defense from what we've seen all year, but this is a very difficult matchup, so I'm not playing them this week.
All right.
Going back to myself.
Kicking it back. I'll kick it to you. I'll set you up. Broncos and the Raiders is the last game for us. Broncos are favored by 2.5. It's a 44-point over/under. Is there anything we like here?
Few things.
There's a few.
What do we like here is the better question. Because I know there are a few.
One of them's not named Case Keenum. He's the QB 21 on the season. He's only averaging 13.5 points per game on the year. Though the Raiders have struggled against quarterbacks when it comes to giving up touchdowns over the past 4 games, they've given up 8. They've only given up 227 passing yards per game in that same stretch. So not playing Keenum. Lindsey gave you a sinker in week 15, but if you survive, he's got a great matchup this week. Raiders have given up just over 100 rushing yards per game over the past 4 games at 4.2 yards per clip, including 4 touchdowns during that span. They don't give up a lot of pass catching work, but that's not Lindsey's game, so I'm playing him with a lot of confidence as a mid to high RB2 with a lot of upside. Not playing Freeman this week. Touches are very low. He's had just 10 carries and a catch over his past 2 games. And out of this receiving core, that's where things get a bit more interesting. I'm going with Bayshawn Hamilton as my great dart throw off here. Per PFF, he gets to see Marcus Gilchrist, who's the 12th worst slot corner this season. He's seen over 21 targets over his past 2 games. He's got 14 of those, one of them for a touchdown. While the yardage is low at just 47 and 46 in those 2 games, the upside and the upside for him to do a long catch and run play is where I love him the most. His target separations at a very respectable 2.02 this season. Tim Kirkpatrick's the only other one I like from here. He's seen 18 targets. He's got 12 of them for 150 yards total. My only issue with him is that he's 3rd in snaps behind Hamilton and Sutton. And as for Sutton, he's 2nd in snaps, but 3rd in production. I'm not trusting him this week. I don't know how healthy he still is. So I would rather play Hamilton over both of them, though. As for the tight end, Lacoste has some, or Lacoste, whatever his name is, has some value in 2 tight end leagues. He had 6 targets out, or he had 6 targets last time out. This is a good matchup for him, as the Raiders have given up the most tight end points per game over the past 4 weeks. So if you want to get cute with that, you can. Defense has been up and down. His car has been better as of late, but he's taken at least 3 sacks in every game since week 9, and he's averaging 4.3 sacks taken during that same span. So I don't hate the Broncos defense this week. Anything else on the Broncos?
Nope.
All right. Speaking of Derek Carr, this is the biggest game of the year for all you fantasy owners, and I'm not playing Derek Carr. I still don't trust him. He hasn't thrown interceptions since week 5, so that's good. And he's thrown a touchdown in every game since week 1, and 3 of those 5 games he's thrown for 2+. Again, though, it's hard for me to trust him in 1 QB leagues. He's a very good play in 2 QBs, though. As for the running backs, I'm avoiding all of them here. The Broncos are allowing just 100 yards, just shy of 100 yards per game on the ground, but that work is being split between Richard and Martin. They're basically splitting production and snaps as of late, so I'm not trying to get cute with either of them. As for Jordy and the receivers here, Jordy's seen 7+ targets, 6+ catches, and 2 of those 3 games he's gone for 80 or more yards. So I do like him as a desperation, kind of a good flex play wide receiver, low 3, high 4 for you. The only thing he's missing out of those 3 games is a touchdown. And Bradley Roby hasn't been the corner that we've seen of past. These player profilers ranked 79th ranked corner on the year, so there's no reason to fear him. I guess Jordy Nelson was the wide receiver 1, Gruden 1, and all along. He's been the wide receiver 18.5 point PPRs during his past 3 games. Jared Cook has a great matchup here. Denver's given up 1,000 yards in a season to tight ends, including 6 touchdowns and nearly 92 yards per game over their past 4 games, including 8.5 targets and 6 catches during that span. So Cook, for me, is a top 5 tight end play this week and never play in the Raiders defense, even against Case Keenum.
All right.
That's it for that.
That's it.
That's it, folks.
That's all, folks. You can catch us on YouTube live tomorrow, 10:30 a.m., where Nick and I will get all of your set questions for championship week.
And so many injuries to go over.
There's one thing we have to do. I haven't opened up my show gift.
Oh, that's right. We go ahead. Let's do that before we have an on-air production meeting.
You guys can keep talking, though, while you keep.
So, as for on-air production meetings, when is our next show?
I don't know. I'll be back Tuesday. Dan's back Wednesday, and we'll have to figure it out from there.
Yeah, and I'll be back Wednesday too. So we'll have to figure it out from there. Probably Friday, I would guess. I know we're not doing one, so there will not be a show on Monday or Tuesday. Enjoy the holidays. We're gonna be too many different places doing too many different things. There will not be a Monday show. Going forward, you can expect shows on Mondays, just not this upcoming week.
You might see an episode drop the 31st for one last episode in 2018, and then expect Mondays through into 2019.
Right.
All right, so I got my gift. Open it up. It's a coffee mug. It's from our good friend Andy over here. This says, thinking of you during this difficult time as you recover from picking up the wrong fantasy football player again. We've all been there. It's one of the worst feelings in the world when you play the wrong waiver pickup.
It is indeed. All right, that's all we got for you this week. Thank you for hanging out with us really this season. We've got, like I said, one more on Sunday for you. We should have some form of a recap episode before the end of the year. And then after that in 2019, just expect Mondays until we say different. One more time for really the 2018 NFL season. I am at Hot BFF coming from the satellite studio in St. Louis, Missouri. Joined from the regular studio in Springfield, Illinois by Dan Thury.
At Thury BFF, I'm looking forward to the awards.
I am also looking
show
forward to
for
the
us.
award show. And from the Twin Cities, Nick Sparts.
At Nick Sparts, thanks for tuning in, guys. We will get a superlatives or some sort of awards episode for you to cap the season, and then we're on to 2019.
We're on to 2019. We'll be doing some more recap, some dynasty stuff in the off season before we get to rookies, and expect rookie episodes to start coming out February, March.
Yep.
Yeah.
So until then, enjoy your holiday season. Thank you for tuning in. We will catch you guys next time.
Next time.
On Beerfields Fantasy Football. See ya.
Later.